Hi everyone, thanks for joining today. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. So today we're going to talk about BNB Smart Chain. So I know during this Hackvolution hackathon, during all those workshops, we've been mostly talking about opBNB and Greenfield, but we should not forget about the main one, which is like the BNB Smart Chain. So we're going to go through a bit during some first half of the year and second half of the year. It's a technical highlights, and we're going to see a bit like what has been developed from a more technical point of view on the BNB Smart Chain. So hopefully you're going to find this quite interesting, and I'm going to go through slowly and trying to explain quite well all the different points that we have been covered during the first half of the year and what we're going to cover as well in the second half, and especially like next year as well in terms of research and how potentially you can, let's say, join us as well in the research. So we have multiple platform where you can join us and discuss about different topics that we are actively discussing on the forum, for example. So looking forward to see when you're joining us. So let's jump into the summary of the call today. So first off, we're going to, so as you can see on the right side, we have I've shown you the screenshot of the forum where we have all our, let's say, technical release and hard fork or soft fork planned as well. So feel free to join our forum where you can really see what is planned for the upcoming months and upcoming year as well. You can see the history of what happened, when it was delivered, when it is planned as well. So which means, like, for example, at which block heights a new soft fork or hard fork is going to be implemented. So which is something that is really important for, let's say, validator community or community which are providing RPC connector as well, or indexer, for example. So really looking forward for you to join our forum to really see what's happening. In terms of, let's say, highlight for the first half of the year, I'm going to go through, let's say, four main highlights. We had three different, let's say, hard fork and one main topic, which was about MEV. So I'm going to go into each of them and explain you a bit what happened and what is the impact as well for the network. Same as for second half of the year, where we have like multiple ongoing research, which I'm going to highly go through it as well to give you a bit of overview of what's happening and potentially how you can join us in discussing those points as well. So without further ado, maybe let's jump into the Plank hard fork. So as you can see here at the bottom right, this was the front one. So we're going to go through the order which is shown here. So this was the first, let's say, big hard fork this year. Then we're going to go through the Luban and Plateau. So actually Plateau is planned for tomorrow. So hope that everyone has updated the client and their node, because this Plateau update is going to be quite important regarding the governance security of BSC, especially with the final introduction of the FastFinality mechanism, which I'm going to go deeper inside today to give you a bit of more overview of what exactly it is. But first of all, so early this year, we've introduced as well the cross-chain relayer manager. So as you know, this BEP 174 really aims to enhance the security of our system by basically introducing the relayer manager concept. So those relayer manager basically are responsible for managing the registration of individual relayers. Those relayers are mainly here for the cross-chain communication between the Beacon chain and the BSC, and in the future between Greenfield and BSC as well. So as you know, since we have the native cross-chain between those, let's say, chain, we need to ensure that the relayer are secure and white label as well. So actually, this proposal was really about introducing a new governance type, to manage the relayer public key, which is basically stored in the relayer hub Genesis contract on the BSC level. So as you might know, only registered relayer public key are able to invoke these specific smart contracts, which is then enabling cross-chain transfer. So all of this is, for example, for Greenfield in the future, when you're going to transfer BNB from BSC into Greenfield, those relayer are basically going to be able to trigger the cross-chain transfer. The motivation is really to add an extra layer of security by introducing this governance-based of manager with public keys. We really ensure that only authorized relayer can send cross-chain messages, which is something that is really important for our security. Maybe a few details to look into it first. So as you know, the current, initially we need to as well like whitelist specific relayer. So initially they were hard-coded, and now every time that a new relayer want to add his let's say, within the network is manager, basically the current relayer need to vote and allow him to be back part of the public key within the relayer hub contract. So this is managed on-chain as well. So as well within the relayer hub smart contract, there is a few changes which included, for example, update parameters such as add or remove manager and update relayers as well. So all of this is on-chain proposal that can be created by new relayers who want to join the network. So this was the first part of the relayer manager, which is really here to enhance the security of the cross-chain transactions. Secondly, we had as well new innovation, or early this year, let's say really end of last year. So it was end of December. So I'm going to put it for early this year, since for me it's quite something that's quite important for the network, which is the native staking on BSC. So as you might know, currently the staking, or not currently, but before this native staking, for people to participate in the delegation of the staking within the validator, it was only possible to be done through the Beacon chain, which means that it was kind of length-worthy as well for users or for retail if they want to stake BNB to specific validator to enhance the validator, let's say, ranking in terms of security. They needed to first go to Beacon chain and then from Beacon chain stake onto a specific validator. So this BEP reintroduced what we call a new staking system contract on the BSC side, which is really allowing all staking related operation to be initiated through these contracts, which means that all operations that are applied on the BSC within this native staking contract is going to be applied across chain to the Beacon chain through this native cross-chain communication mechanism. This really allows, for example, decentralized application to launch, for example, the staking service, or individuals to stake directly through these services, which means that, for example, specific decentralized application can launch a specific dApp where user can select to which validator they want to stake their BNB without going through the Beacon chain, but directly natively through the BNB Smart Chain. Which means that the main goal is really to make it more user-friendly. Before this BEP, as I mentioned, BNB holder, they had to transfer the asset into Beacon chain to stake, but now they're able to do it directly onto the BSC, which means that it's really diversifying as well the BSC ecosystem in terms of staking services. From a technical specification, there are a few frameworks that consist, let's say, of 4 main components that are listed here as well. The first one would be, for example, the staking system contract, which is this new system contract, which is handling all the requests on BSC side. And of course, the cross-chain communication. We are utilizing the existing infrastructure for cross-chain operation. And thanks to this added layer as well of security with the relayer manager, it's something that is really safe and secure. On the Beacon chain itself, in order to be able to handle this new native staking on the BSC, it was mandatory to add a cross-chain staking app, which is really the app which is handling all the cross-chain staking requests on the Beacon chain itself. This new staking module on Beacon chain is really here to be connected to the existing infrastructure on the staking delegation. So this all those, let's say, new native staking solution on BNB Smart Chain is really here to enhance the user friendliness of the staking feature and really attract more delegation and more diversifying let's say DeFi solution within the BSC ecosystem thanks to this native staking. We can already see that a few projects started to utilize it as well. So we are really looking forward to see as well more projects connecting to it and utilizing this native staking on BSC in order to provide new services to the users. Because as you know, like, it's really important for the security of the network and the security of the validator that enough people are delegating their BNB in order to show which validator is basically impacting the rank of each validator. After that, we had as well some specific work and enhancements, which was about the, let's say, the stability of the network. So as you know, as on each blockchain, whenever, let's say, for example, something bad is happening from a validator, or if they are missing some specific term, there is some specific slash that can happen. So with this BEP 172, we are basically introducing random dates within the behavior of our parallel consensus, which is when a specific slash is happening. There are some specific action which is happening as well, and we've updated, let's say, some specific logic or enhanced some logic in order to handle better some specific slashing. So as you might be aware of, on the BSC network, each validator, when it's their turn, they have 3 seconds at most to push the new block. So in order to ensure our throughputs, each block mine cannot be delayed for more than 3 seconds, which means that if a validator is missing their turn, they are basically going to get slashed from the network because they haven't respected the specific, let's say, rule of 3 seconds. Of course, every time that there is a slash happening, it's as well adding some small recovery time within the network. So one of the motivation really to change or enhance this stability was really to ensure that whenever a slash would occur, if a validator is missing his turn, it wouldn't increase or it wouldn't lead to a delay in, for example, a block for the next block, or it wouldn't imply recovered back to an expected block, which would be committed a bit later, for example. So within this new BEP, the calculation of the algorithm of what we call the off-turn validation delay time is rewritten in order to allow a block to be committed in 4 seconds if the current validator is missing his turn, which means that if a validator is missing his turn right now, the next validator can already push his own block even without waiting another 3 seconds, which is basically enhancing the workflow. This is adding, really reducing the minimum delay between when a slash is occurring and when the new block is happening as well. So this BEP 172 is really representing a significant step within the network stability and really efficiency of the network itself, in particularly when a slashing is occurring. So this is really here to optimize the delay mechanism and ensure a quick recovery in case of slash occurrence. I would suggest for people who are more interested into those 3 seconds, which are quite important within the BSC network, we have a community blog. I think you can find it on the NodeRail website about the critical 3 seconds within the BSC, which is a 3-part long article, which is explaining you the critical aspects of the 3 seconds for each block within the BSC network. So for people who are really more like looking into these specific cases, I would really suggest you to look into this article and try to learn more about the importance of the 3 seconds within the BSC network. Now I'm going to talk about something that is quite important as well for the network and for the upcoming future of the BSC, let's say, stability and finality, especially with the introduction in the future of opBNB and Greenfield and other potential layer 2s. The finality on chain is something that is really important. So as you know, by definition, a blockchain the finality is referred to the point, for example, at which a transaction or a block of transaction, as we can say, can no longer be reverted or altered. So for example, for the Bitcoin network, we usually expect 6 or 7 blocks in order to ensure that the block is really finalized, which means that it's really, it's more probabilistic, which means that the likelihood that a transaction gets reverted is really getting decreased over time as more block are added to the network. So it's really crucial for the network itself to have a finality which is trusted and which can prevent double spending in the blockchain system. So there's multiple types of finality. As I mentioned before, we have the probabilistic one, which is more like the proof of work, within Bitcoin, or we have a sort of probabilistic one. The current one within the BSC network is probabilistic as well, which means after a certain amount of block, which currently is like between 10 and 15 block, we can basically expect that that block is not going to be altered or reversed. And then in some other type of finality, we call it absolute finality, which can be seen in some specific proof of stake blockchain where a mechanism is specifically guaranteed that a transaction is finalized after a certain amount of time once it's added to the blockchain. So within the BSC network, the community has heavily worked into introducing what is called the fast finality. So the fast finality is really here to enhance the finality of the BSC network. So the aim is really to lower the finality up to 2 or 3 blocks, which means that between 6 to 12 seconds, you can consider that a block or transaction is fully finalized within the BSC network. So I'm just going to go through more detail of this specificity of the fast finality. So there are a few assumptions, first of all. So the assumption is that the set of validator is considered fixed. So as you know, for the BSC network, each set of validator is re-ranked every 24 hours. So based on the weight of the delegation amount of BNB that a validator has, the ranking is made. And then every 24 hours, the new ranking is being pushed to the BSC in order to elect, for example, the next validator for the next 24 hours, which means that you can consider it fixed for a certain amount of time. And of course, one of the assumptions as well is that more than half of those validators are assumed to be honest. So this is something, so more than 2/3 of the validator can be assumed to be honest, which is something that is quite interesting. So in terms of finality, so we are assuming that a block is going to be finalized and irreversible when it receives signature for more than 3/4 of the validator, which means that once a block has going to be pushed on chain, each validator needs to add his signature on top of it in order to validate this block. And once a certain amount of validator are adding the signature, we can basically assume that this block is finalized and cannot be reversed. Of course, if not enough vote has been added to a specific block, the standard, let's say, probabilistic finality is still applied, which is currently, let's say, 15 block for BSC to ensure the probabilistic finality. Of course, hopefully, we have as well this new consensus is adding some reward as well for validator to vote on time. So hopefully all the validators are going to be able to push their vote and cast the new rules fast enough in order to attract as well more finality and increase the reward as well. So a few rules as well for validators in order to ensure that they are behaving accordingly to the network. So one of those rules is that a validator must not publish, for example, 2 distinct votes for the same height, which means that the validator can only vote once for one specific block, which is something that is important. One of the second rule is that a validator is prohibited from casting votes within range that is already covered by his previous votes. So for example, I'm not able to vote for the block number 1 if I've already voted for the block number 2, for example. So we cannot, it's to ensure as well that there is just the right amount of votes that is pushed by validator. On top of that as well, like each validator must vote on their own, what is called canonical chain, which is like the latest block that they have. So they really need to ensure that they are up to date with the network in order to vote on the right block at the right time as well. So this is something that is quite important for the network and is something that is going to be introduced live tomorrow, which means that currently it's the phase 1 has been pushed, but tomorrow the phase 2 is going to be live during the 10th of August. So going to be quite interesting to see this new finality within the BSC network. As I mentioned, we have as well some reward, voting reward, and the key security in order to ensure that the validator are behaving accordingly and are rewarded as well for each action that they are performing in the consensus level. So in terms of reward mechanism, the validator, of course, are going to be rewarded, as I mentioned previously, for casting their vote early. So the earlier they are casting their votes, the more reward they might get, because this is really to ensure that the finality is accelerated and done as quickly as possible. So this is something that is really important. And for that reason, we are really trying to bring more to this finality. A validator will assemble as well that attestation, which means the attestation of other bots. They're really going to add more security on the previous bot, so they're going to get a proportion of the reward as well. One important factor is the slashing mechanism. To ensure that the validator are behaving correctly, we need to have potential slashing mechanism in place as well to make sure that there is no malicious behavior within the network. So, for example, if validators are violating the first two rules, which was they cannot vote more than once for one specific block height, or they cannot vote if for a previous block if they've already voted for another one, they're potentially getting slashed as well. Evidence of course, malicious behavior can be submitted by anyone to a designated system contract. So everyone can audit the chain and potentially slash a validator if he's seeing something malicious. Once, of course, the evidence is proved, there is a slashing which is happening on this specific validator. This specific validator is going to be put in jail and fined heavily. As you know, currently the self-stake is 2000 BNB. So which means that once a validator is put in jail with this slashing, is going to lose those 2000 BNB. So, and of course, the person which is submitting this evidence is receiving a portion of the reward, which is something that is quite important to ensure the security and as well the monitoring of the system, making sure that everyone is potentially monitoring and pushing evidence in case something is happening. So as I mentioned, all of this is going to be active tomorrow, and hopefully everything will be added correctly, and we'll be able to see a new finality within the BSC network. I'm going to talk about another topic now, which is the impact of MEV within the BSC network. So with we already had a community call around MEV, but I'm just going to emphasize a bit again on what happened and why the developer community decided to work more into MEV on BSC as well. So as we saw last year, a lot of, let's say, developments were happening in terms of MEV on BSC. When I say development, means that a few validators were capturing most of the MEV, which was really creating some centralization and unfairness within the overall network. We saw as well that in terms of profits, a lot of profit were extracted within the BSC network, even higher than the profit that were able to capture the MEV bot on Ethereum. So really the lack of MEV solution on the BSC occurred end of last year when we realized that only a few validators were able to capture MEV. So just for your understanding, so end of last year or early this year, only 6 or 5 validators were able to capture MEV, when it was something that is a bit higher now. So really this open issue of potentially having decentralization or unfairness with the network was something that was quite interesting to explain and to work on for the community. So for that reason, the developer community started to discuss heavily on introducing MEV on BSC as well for multiple validator and for all the community. So here I'm going to show a few updates of what happened since those discussion happened. So we can really see that since first half of this year, we can see a strong uptrend in the integration of MEV within the BSC network. So which is something that is quite interesting to see. So initially only approximately 10% of validator integrated MEV within the validator, where now we are reaching approximately 70% of validator, which are using a different MEV service provider. So we have, like, if I'm right, 3 different providers right now, which are providing MEV service for BSC validator. So as you can see as well, we have different RPC connector that you can find online, which are helping you to either extract MEV or protect you against it. So we can really see a rapid growth into MEV discussion within the BSC community, and especially within the validator community as well. So in terms of success, we can really see that it's as well helping to increase the validator profits, and it's creating new revenue stream and optimization for the operation of the blocks as well. So on top of that, first half of this year, as the community might have noticed, but we had a strong reduction in transaction fees. So thanks to MEV as well, validator were able to still have good increase in profit and efficiency, even though the transaction cost has been drastically decreased by the validators. Nevertheless, it's creating a lot of challenges for different validators, especially the technical, for example, difficulties in integrating different MEV provider or attracting different MEV provider. This, of course, keeps adding concern into transparency and competitiveness, which is something that is really important to ensure a fair and distributed network. And of course, question about long-term sustainability and public perception is something that is always increasingly discussed within the community. Here we can see that I just wanted to show you as well, like what happened from a developer perspective within MEV integration. So when you click, you can view a Blockstart lab who created a specific fork to implement as well more transparency towards MEV. So we can see some specific changes to really add potential MEV layer as well into BSC network for validator to be able to extend the capacity to connect to multiple MEV and for searcher to extract MEVs as well. So as you know, this technology really represents a significant advancement into MEV within BSC, and it's something that MEV relay is really designed to propose potential block to connect multiple validator to multiple searcher. Of course, there is an added logic as well within this specific fork here, which is that the validator are able to either select a block which is coming from different MEV relays, or they're as well able to choose from their own specific block construction. So which is really providing as well more transparency and fairness for the validator to potentially either select their own block or a block from different relay. So we are really looking forward to have more relay and searcher which are joining the BSC network in order to have a more distributed network of MEV and to keep having a decentralization on top of it as well. Now I'm going to discuss more about the upcoming development and delivery for H2 as well within the BSC network. So one of the future hard fork, which is going to happen end of this month or early September, the block height hasn't been defined yet. So this hard fork, which is going to be called Hertz, it's really here to, as you know, we need to keep up to date with the latest development in EVM blockchain, as it is important to keep the block transaction structure or base EVM up to date as well. So a lot of new features have already been added to ETH and with the burning fork or London fork as well. Therefore, the compatibility, for a specific compatibility reason, it is as well important that those EIP are also added onto the BSC network itself. So as you might know, the burn hard fork was added on Ethereum in April 2021, if I remember well, and it's including 4 main proposals, which are going to be added as well to the BSC network. So the first main ones are going to be really here to help on the EVM based in order to modify the cost of pre-compiling and certain operation to make certain operation cheaper as well, which is something that's really important to keep up to date with those latest developments. The EIP 2929, which is renamed BEP 230, is the gas cost increase, which is something that is important as well, which is really aiming to mitigate potential denial of service attack to really increase the gas cost of certain storage operation. So these are for the burning upgrades. And regarding the London upgrade, which this one, if I'm right, was in August 2021 on ETH, we're going to add as well 4 EIP into BNB Smart Chain as well. One of the main one, which should be the EIP 1559, which is introducing a new pricing mechanism. So on the BSC network, the base fee is going to be set to 0, which is something that is really important as well for new development, such as account abstraction or other development, to make it seamless to integrate between different EVM platforms. So all of those EIP are going to be brought back into the BSC network either end of August or early September. So you can view the specific timeline on our BNB Chain forum. But of course, we're going to, once the developer community is going to finalize this development and testing on the testnet, we're going to propagate as well the specific timeline on our different channels, such as Discord, Twitter, or the forum as well. Now I'm going to discuss about a few upcoming research that is happening heavily on the forum as well. So as you know, we have multiple research happening on the forum. We have a wish list as well that maybe I'm going to go through later on, where you can really join our forum and discuss specific topic or propose specific solution to specific, let's say, growing issue that the network might have within the next few years. So it's something that we really welcome you to join in discussing those specific challenges. One of those challenges is, as you know, the storage. So the storage is something that is increasingly growing into blockchain technology. So as you know, like every time there's a new transaction or something new happening, the storage is something that is continuously growing nonstop. So as you know, within ETH, they have a proposal, which is EIP 4444, which is really trying to prune the historical block. But of course, this didn't touch the storage itself. And the storage is still something that can, for example, be even larger than block. So there's a lot of researchers in the BSC forum into the state expiry to really address the storage challenge. One of those proposals, which is currently at state V0.4 in terms of state expiry, is, for example, about the transitioning to Merkle tree. And we have like 4 new key features. It might not be the end design, of course, because it's still, as you can see, it's an idea. So it's still into a proposition. So this specific Merkle tree state expiry in simple term, for example, it's something that is really about improving the way data is stored and managed within the BSC ecosystem. It's, for example, upgrading the, let's say, a filing system within a library to make it easier and faster and more efficient to find books or block within the BSC network. So one of the ideas to transition to Merkle tree, which is, as I mentioned, something that is not finalized yet, of course. So it's really representing, for example, a significant potential evolution in a way data are organized within the blockchain. So as you know, traditional Merkle Patricia tree is something that is quite standard for years now, but Merkle trees is introducing a more efficient structure, which is really reducing as well the state proof size, which is, for example, like moving from a, let's say, traditional library system to something which is more digital catalog, so where information are really more easily accessible and manageable. So which is really like helping in the efficiency. This innovation is really a step towards preparing for the network for more like stateless network as well, which is a feature that will further enhance efficiency. Then let's talk a bit about the state epoch as well, which is a system to automatically renew or expire data. It's kind of like refreshing or archiving books. So something that's really helping as well into, which is introducing a dynamic, for example, life cycle for data on the blockchain. So for example, we can imagine a library where books are, for example, automatically refreshed and archived based on the usage. And this will be kind of the same way for the state epoch system, where we ensure that the data is renewed whenever accessed or expired, if not accessed within, for example, a certain time frame. So of course, this mechanism potentially help in managing the state growth by making the validator or the full node operator even lighter. So it's kind of a smart way to keep the system clean and efficient, ensuring that we only save, let's say, that only relevant and frequently used data are kept active, while the rest of the data is, let's say, so-called archived. So which is something that can really drastically as well enhance the likeliness of a client or a validator, especially for the upcoming years. Potentially, we need as well a new transaction type, which is, for example, a new method to handle specific action within the system. Of course, we need to be backward compatible as well. Nevertheless, this new transaction type, for example, can be designed to support state revival, which is, for example, allowing a user to bring back expired or archived states when needed. So, for example, it's like having a special request in a library to retrieve archived books, for example. So this new transaction type potentially includes specific structure to handle revival process or ensuring that it's done smoothly and securely as well. So potentially it's a tailored solution to add a new, for example, dimension into how transaction can be handled, really to provide more flexibility or functionality to the user. So of course, this is still in discussion and in the forum. So really looking forward for people to join us in defining this new potential structure. As I mentioned, everything needs to, of course, be compatible and flexible, which is really ensuring that the system is working well with existing and potential future technology as well. So implementing this new technology can often lead to, let's say, so-called compatibility issue with existing system, which is something that, of course, we cannot create such kind of issue in the future. So this proposal is really kind of designed with both backward and forward compatibility in mind. So the proposal really retained the original tree structure, which is really support as well upgrade to statelessness and considers potential impact or various aspects such as account abstraction, rollups, or light client, for example. It's a thoughtful approach that really recognizes the importance of, let's say, working seamlessly with existing technology and as well ensuring to be flexible enough to adapt for future innovation. So that's really something that is heavily discussed into the forum. So I just want to as well, just give me a second. I'm just going to change screen to share something else. So I would really as well like to take this time to really share with you our forum. So I think you should be able to see my screen. Oh, it's the wrong one. My bad. Here it should come. So here, as you can see my screen, so this is the forum.bnbchain.org, sorry. So this is really where all our research from a technical point is happening and all our, let's say, new research article on new BEP ideas are being published by the developer community. So it's really the place to be if you want to learn more about what's happening within the BNB ecosystem, especially for BNB Smart Chain or Greenfield in terms of core developments. So something that is really important as well to have an eye on. So one of the main, let's say, feature, for example, for BNB Chain upgrades within the BSC network would be, for example, this specific topic, where you can see that we are really listing all the upcoming hard fork. Actually, the Hertz hard fork is already planned with a specific block height in expected block height, which is expected to be end of August. And as I mentioned, for the plateau upgrades, the block height is expected to reach tomorrow. So something that is quite important as well for validators and RPC connector or service provider to have an eye on. On top of that, something that is really important and that I would really like to emphasize on is really the wishlist idea in a way. So something that our developer community is trying to heavily focus on for the upcoming months and year as well, because some of those ideas might take more than a few months to discuss and really implement it as well. So one of those are parallel EVM. So as you might know, we've already in phase 2 of the parallel EVM, which is really helping on the parallelization of transaction execution. So nevertheless, I know that there is a phase 3 which is in discussion. So I really look forward for people to join those discussions and potentially see how they can help us as well. As you might know, our guests, the one with the specific fire, usually the one which our dev community is really actively looking for to work on and to potentially have support as well. One of those is, as I mentioned, the state expiry, which I just explained a bit before, which is really something that is important for our community to join our discussions. So usually you can really understand well what's the idea behind the brain of our developer community, so we can really like leverage the different ideas that they have, and as well like bring more, let's say, counterbalancing their ideas as well, and providing more in-depth research and in-depth feedback to each idea. So there's really a high overview of how the integration would be done, and potentially how our community developer is thinking of implementing it as well. One important one as well is the historical data expiry. The most important one I would say for this year are, of course, the state expiry, which is something that is really important. The same, so state expiry is a bit linked to historical data expiry as well. So they are a bit both linked together, which is really about how to handle the growing size of our ledger or of any ledger as such. So those research are not only applied within the BSC network, but can potentially as well be applied on other networks such as Ethereum or Polygon or any type of EVM network as well. So those research can really like bring more innovation towards the whole ecosystem. Something that is in the wish list as well here and within the wish list of the grant, as you might have seen previously in different workshops, is this transparency governance and the very fast sync. So those two are something that is we are really looking forward for as well, more feedback and research from like outside community to really help us to bring more innovation towards those two topics, which is something that is really important. So I see some question about will the BNB Chain Mainnet complete on August 10? Exactly. So on August 10, which is tomorrow, the hard fork for the the plateau, I was losing the name, sorry. The plateau is going to happen tomorrow, which is really going to introduce the second stage of the FastFinality. So this is going to happen tomorrow and is going to bring the FastFinality into BNB Smart Chain. So something that is going to happen tomorrow that is already planned. All the validators have already updated the clients, as well as submitting the vote key into Beacon Chain. So everything is up and ready for the hard fork, and we are really looking forward for this achievement, because it's really going to enhance our security model within the BSC network. So feel free to give me any other question about it if you want, but everything is planned for tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure about that time anymore. I would need to check, but I think it should happen around 2 p.m. UTC, but I would need to double check exactly. That's of course an approximation. And as well as on the forum, if I just want to utilize as well this time to show you a bit all the different categories that we currently have. So you have the BEP category, which is really, as I mentioned, for all the research that is happening and all the different enhancements. This is something that usually people are pushing here and discussing here. We have as well the BNB Greenfield, which is more about like our decentralized storage solution, where, as we can see, people are really trying to provide more feedback, such as, for example, introducing new mechanism on top of Greenfield, where people are really sharing as well strong ideas and research and implementation. So this is really something that we are really welcoming everyone to jump on it and add feedback on it or add ideas as well. So that's all for me today. I hope you really had a good overview of more technical insight about what happened on the BSC network this year, and what's going to happen as well in the future, and how we can potentially help us to enhance our BSC network in terms of stability and in terms of growth as well, especially utilizing opBNB and Greenfield alongside BSC network. Of course, please don't forget to apply to the hackathon. And I think it's almost time for you to start submitting different dApps. Of course, even if it's not fully finalized, feel free to start submitting some so our team can already start to review and see, potentially give you some feedback maybe as well. So really don't forget to apply. The end date, if I'm right, for the application is going to be the 20th of August. So it's still 11 days. Really looking forward to see what you've been able to build. So of course, to apply, don't forget to go to bnbchain.org/, which is really going to, so on our website, you'll be able to see really all the different information in order to be able to apply to the hackathon. Thanks for joining me today. And if you have any question, feel free to reach out to Discord or to our forum if it's related to BSC or even Greenfield from a, let's say, core technical research. Thank you.